Welcome everybody. This is the General SharePoint Developers Special Interest Group. That's what the SIG mean in the name, and this is the bi-weekly syncs. It is September 5th, and it's raining in Helsinki, so autumn definitely has arrived. September, by the way, I don't know why I'm telling this, but in Finnish language, September is actually autumn month. So if you translate the September in Finnish, it's actually called autumn month, and it's clearly autumn in the northern hemisphere. Now let's actually get moving on today's agenda. So we'll have a few slides on news and updates from Microsoft and engineering side. Not a massive amount of things right now, so we'll get more and more news when we get closer to the Ignite, and obviously then more news after the Ignite as well. Then we talk about updates on our 3 open source projects which are related on this non-SharePoint frameworks side of the house, which is the PnP CSOM Core, PnP PowerShell, and Modernization tooling. And then after that, we have RK Menon from Microsoft side showing new column formatting capabilities. So there's a new layout coming up, if I remember correctly, on this call, and he's going to show that in practice and talk about that from his computer side. And then after that, John Liu is staying up late. You shouldn't be probably up late this late anymore, but he wanted to actually do a demo around the SharePoint patch in Microsoft Flow, so how you can copy stuff between the lists, if I remember scenario properly. And then we have Paolo. We added Paolo's demo here earlier today because we thought that there's a time for third demo. And I think the scenario is quite interesting. So if you use a modern page layouts, how do you replicate or synchronize modern page layouts across the site collection? So what are your options to making sure that whenever there's a new site collection getting created, there's a default set of modern page layouts available? Or to be honest, they're not page layouts, they are page templates, and probably we need to be more specific on explaining what's the difference of those when we get to that section. Now, and Q&A in the end if we have time. So for everybody who's joining these calls, please remember we are more than welcome. We more than welcome you to do demos in these calls as well. So obviously there are certain calls like the monthly calls, which we're now kind of let's say positioning and aligning more to be a Microsoft trained calls, and then the bi-weekly calls, which are happening, actually 2 bi-weekly calls are happening in every single Thursday. These would be a perfect opportunities for community demos. If you're interested in doing community demo and demonstrating a solution or a technical pattern, please ping any of the core team members, me, Bert, Andrew Connell, Patrick Rogers, doesn't really matter, somebody, and we'll figure out your spot in the upcoming calls. It probably won't be immediately the next call because there's actually quite a lot of people in queue on doing these demos, which is great because it means the community wants to show what they have built for others in the community so everybody can benefit from this common mind of the community. So it's the common brain of the community rather than everybody fighting against by themselves on how to do stuff. You can absolutely contribute in GitHub with samples and guidance and code. Maybe one reminder in the GitHub contributions, because we got a few samples which were kind of dependent on code on the other GitHub repos, which were not owned by Microsoft. We do have, however, a policy that only those samples and code which is in the GitHub organizations which Microsoft owns are the ones which we can promote. And this is because we want to avoid situations where somebody changes code or a GitHub repository without us knowing, because we don't have a control on that repository. So that's the reason why we're asking samples and everything else to be actually submitted towards us, so we can then actually guarantee that the README file doesn't have any offensive messages suddenly without us knowing or whatever. So that is reducing our PR risks, and that's the reason why we're asking people to contribute on our GitHub organizations rather than keeping the code on their side as well. Well, you can do both. That's definitely an option as well. And the number 13, big thing, please give us feedback, give us feedback, give us feedback, give us feedback, so we'll know what is missing and what needs to be improved. And that really is, the chat is again super active on the right side window. That's one way of giving feedback during the calls, but also using the GitHub issue lists, social media, and our community channels for giving us the feedback if something needs to be improved. So super important thing. Now, moving on things quickly, 3 important links: AKMS SP Dev Docs, our documentation, AKMS SP Dev videos, all those recordings of these community calls, and all of the other videos are there. and AKMS SPDev issues. That is the issue list where we provide support for SharePoint developer topics, because our public SharePoint Online support doesn't actually provide support for dev topics, so we're using this issue list for that purpose. And we do apologize, there has been some delays on certain issues on getting them processed, and we are trying to fix that process, absolutely. Now, a few metrics just to show you that you're not alone. If you're wondering, is anybody else doing SharePoint development? Is anybody else contributing? Is this really SharePoint growing? And this is our community numbers. We had 220,000 watch time minutes in YouTube in August 2019, so last month, and with 43,000 views, which is quite a big number. We had 52,000 unique visitors in GitHub, with generating 240,000 views. In the docs, we actually did go quite significantly down, so we've been above 1 million in the official documentation. But hey, it was a summer vacation period in Northern Hemisphere, so we can already see that in September the numbers are getting back in the docs as well. On the open source community side of the house, the PnP reusable components, which is PnP PowerShell, PnP CSOM Core, PnP JS, were used in 25,709 tenants, and they generated 16.4 billion HTTP requests in August 2019. So quite a few tenants are using these open source assets. Provisioning engine was used in the more than 3,000 tenants as well. Pretty cool, because that means that people like this stuff and it works, at least in an adequate level. No, well, it's meant to obviously work, but there might be always issues and bugs in the open source stuff as well. So we'll get everything improved gradually as part of this journey. Few reminders from the Microsoft side of the house. Yesterday we released a new version of the SharePoint Framework developer training package. This is not the SharePoint Framework community call, but I think it's a fair point to call out that there's an updated version of the training package, and this contains videos, presentation, hands-on labs, and demos. So if you're looking into redeliver this training package or some of the training modules to somebody else, you can reuse the material. We didn't refresh the videos this time, but all of the other materials, hands-on labs and demos, are now in the SharePoint Framework 1.9.1 version, so on the latest version. So that's really good. You can pull it down, you can use it any way you want. You can use the slides and materials and all of that. No permissions need to be asked. If you have a conference presentation tomorrow, download the slides and reuse those slides as much as you want. Everything is absolutely welcome. SharePoint Dev monthly community call. So you probably noticed we do have quite a few community calls coming up, and in general, we are executing two different bi-weekly Thursday calls and then the monthly community call. And like I said in the intro, we're kind of repositioning the monthly community call to be more a Microsoft trim and demos and Microsoft messaging towards you, and then the community calls, the Thursday calls, to be more on the community demos, hopefully, if you're going to find community members to do the demos as well. This time, next Thursday, we'll have John Sanders, who's a principal program manager who owns all of the out-of-the-box web parts in SharePoint Online, joining us, and he's going to do cool new demos on the new capabilities on out-of-the-box web parts, and also talk about the roadmap. Some of the questions from a last monthly call were like, hey, are you looking into open sourcing any of these web parts? We'll talk about that one next Tuesday as well. And so it's also live demo of the latest capabilities of out-of-the-box web parts, and also to have an opportunity for you to ask any questions from John Sanders, who, as said, owns the web part experience in SharePoint Online, which is pretty cool that John is joining us. He used to be part of my team, and now he's a sister team, so to say. We do work quite closely together. So that's on next Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Let's move to PnP CSOM Core library, and let's do quick updates from here. Bert?
So our PnP CSOM Core library, what happened over the last weeks? Actually, surprisingly a lot, because there was like a ton of PRs waiting from the vacation period, and not all of them have been processed. So we processed, I think, about half of them already. The other ones will be for the next couple of weeks. So if your PR is still pending, just be a bit patient. We'll get there eventually. Now, what are we shipping in our upcoming release, which will be out on Monday next week latest? That's important thing is vertical section support. So remember that you might have seen those when you create a modern page, you now can have like at the right side a vertical section which spans the complete page. So you can provision those from the our modern page API. We're also looking into adding that capability into the provisioning engine, so you can have templates that create pages with a vertical section. That's not there yet this month, but will be definitely there for the next month. Some modern site creation improvements. So when you create a team site, a modern team site without a group, we now use the SP Site Manager approach, not the classic site creation approach anymore, which is slightly faster. We also have support for kind of checking when the site is ready or not. So when you use provision those modern sites, typically return site is ready, but sometimes system returns site is pending. It's working because just some backend delays. Sometimes that status returned that wasn't really handled at all. Now that's implemented, and then there is a whole series of smaller fixes that just put on the slide. One is around zone emphasis. So we see sometimes zone emphasis being set as undefined in the modern page, which broke actually the API and the provisioning, which has been fixed now, and there's some Teams provisioning enhancements as well. So looking forward, more to come is definitely more PRs to review and merge. And there's still work on our plate around Delta change handling for Teams and data export. Being able to export more data by default from the engine compared to where we only now allow you to export all the pages, but not the actual content. I think that's it, Vesa, for this one, for the PnP CSOM Core library.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. So let's actually move forward on the PowerShell side of the house. I saw that Erwin is on a house and you unmuted already. So you are thinking ahead. That's good. I didn't give you permission to unmute yet. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll wait.
Okay. Take it away.
Okay, I see a version. Okay, whatever. Never mind. I am looking at the latest version. Oh, yeah, okay, that is correct. Actually, that is the latest version out there. Bert mentioned that lots of things actually happened last month in Core. Sort of the opposite is there with PowerShell for the sole reason that I actually was enjoying a 4 weeks vacation. So there's quite some PRs waiting out there to be merged, which I am working on as we speak. So hopefully a few of them will actually end up in the release we will do the coming days. So September the 9th, which is Monday, the new release will very likely, if we don't run into new issues or blocking issues, but most likely September the 9th, we will release the new version. Some couple of things have happened already, but Monday, there might actually be more changes in there. Bert wrote some changes to the convert to PnP client-side page commandlet. I actually haven't checked out, but I think it is Mikael Svensson that has made a change to the get PnP search crawl log to get the raw crawl log data in there. And now you can actually, using the set PnP tenant, enable or disable first-party web parts by specifying its GUID. It's not maybe the most user-friendly way of doing it, but you can actually turn off the visibility of first-party web parts now. As I mentioned, we have a lot of PRs, I think over 30 out there waiting. So I will work as fast as possible to get them all merged into and get them out. If it doesn't end up in the upcoming release on Monday, well, it will be the next release. We are working on it.
Cool. Excellent. And moving on to the modernization tooling. So we have plenty of time or enough time for the demos as well. And not rushing too much, but obviously let's get in here as well. Thank you, Erwin, on that one. And back to Bert.
Putting the pressure on.
Yeah, no pressure. No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure. Now, what is modernization tooling? In kind of in a nutshell, it's two big components. Is a scanner, which allows you to understand what are things in my tenant that potentially can be modernized, and what amount of work do we have to do to make that happen. And then there is the actual modernization tooling, which mainly is page transformation nowadays. So what happened for the page transformation? In the next one, which is then, as mentioned by Erwin as well and me before, on September 9th latest, we'll have full support from premises 2019 up to 2019 transformation into SharePoint Online. So is really from on-prem to online. So I've received questions and people saying like, can I do like a 2016 on-prem to 2019 on-prem? Unfortunately, that's not currently available. It is not really a super hard thing to build, so maybe we'll build it eventually, or someone in the community wants to pick up that task and make that happen. But today, it's really the target is always online, but the source can be SharePoint 2010 up to 2019. And then there's a whole series of smaller improvements, meaning like we now skip closed web parts. That makes sense. Logging updates. As you might have played around with this, you might when you transform publishing pages, you have to define a publishing page layout mapping model, like a file, where you kind of say like, from the source publishing page layout, how do things kind of map to the modern page? Nowadays you can then, with recent updates, you can now have like one layout mapping file being assigned to multiple classic publishing page layouts, for example. That makes maintenance a bit easier. When we transform content by search, content by query, and there's a query inside the web part, we'll just keep it now because our default highlighted content web part can work with a custom query nowadays. So you can just plug in a custom search query or a custom camel query and we'll respect that. So you can have full control about the query of the web part, and that's something that we benefit from in transformation. And then there's some other smaller things, like you have the option to put text in page layouts. There's some cross-site transformation support for third-party web parts, meaning like, let's say you have a on-premise, a classic publishing portal, and you use a SharePoint framework web part on that one already. If you now transform the page to a communication site, which is a different site collection, and you have installed the same spec solution, the solution is available there as well, then we'll just kind of deploy the solution on the page, on the modern page automatically for you. So overall, lots of small improvements, but and as you see on the slide, usage trend is going up. We'll see more and more usage, more tenants, and definitely more pages being transformed each month. Also more and more publishing pages. So there's like a big, many people are doing publishing page transformation, which means that they are getting rid of the classic portals, which is great. Then the last one is the scanner. The version 2.6 is by end of the month. And the two main improvements there are workflow and info scanning improvements. Both are already there since the 2.5 release in the first version, but we'll plan to mature those and get them out of beta state with the 2.6 version of the scanner. I think
cool.
That's it, Jesse.
Yep, thank you. And just quickly reminding, modernization tooling is an open source tooling available for you to transform from classic publishing or classic wiki pages to modern experiences, because we in Microsoft, we invest on the modern experiences. We are not in the interest of investing on the classic publishing and classic experiences. So, and this is going to help you to transition over there. But let's actually move into the demo area, and RK is the first person. Your image didn't come through that nicely from Twitter. I apologize on that one, but I think we can flip on your screen and let's have a look on the new column formatting capabilities.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to people across the globe. So let's get started. My name is RK, and I am also a member of the OneDrive and SharePoint team, and I'm really super excited to be engaging with the community. You know, over the last couple of months, we've been getting a lot of feedback from the community asking for the tiles layout that we currently have in document libraries to be available on modern lists. We've heard your feedback, and we're really excited to announce that you can now format your modern lists to appear as tiles. So when I walk you through the examples today and how we do it, I'd like to also give you a scenario so that the examples become a little bit more clear. So let's consider that we're a company that sells Microsoft devices such as a Surface line of computers and accessories, Xbox, etc. And centrally, we maintain a master inventory of our live products in a SharePoint list. Now, with the list, we have two main kinds of users or consumers. We've got our staff of field workers who identify products by name, and they're generally interested in product details such as the price, the product name, the product features, the amount of stock we have, and so forth. We also have a bunch of backend employees who identify products by ID, and they're really interested in more details such as the vendor, the store location, etc. So let me quickly switch over and show you the current list that we have. So the list that you see in front of you, that is the master inventory list that we're maintaining. As you can see, it is extremely data heavy and isn't really useful for our field employees. a lot of text everywhere, and the images are kind of too small in the current size. Let me just take a pause and ask, is the text readable for you?
Yep, all good, all good.
Okay, perfect. So, we have view formatting today, and we can use view formatting techniques to format this list to make it look a little bit more appealing. Let me go ahead and switch to another view where I've already formatted it as cards. So in this view, you can see that it is much easier for front-end employees to read it because the image is bigger, it becomes more valuable, and they only care about certain columns. So we can choose what columns you want to display in this format. However, there are inherent problems with this. Bear in mind, right now we are just formatting each list item or a row to look like a card. Now the problems here is, number one, there's a lot of real estate that's being wasted, and I have to scroll left, right, up, down to see complete information or look at all my data at a glance. So to solve this, we've come up with a new layout, which is tiles layout. Let me quickly swap over to the original list. And even here, right, we got to scroll left, right, up, down, and it becomes pretty cumbersome if you want to get a bird's eye view of your entire inventory. Now, in the view dropdown, you see there are 3 different layouts that we have: the list and compact list that you already had, and we've introduced a new layout called tiles. As I click this, you will see this is the new layout that we've defined, where all your content, you can see it in one glance. You have the picture, you have basic all fields that are important to you, and you can scroll up and down. With fewer scrolls, you can see your entire data. And the best part is this entire view is reactive, which means we don't have to worry about scrolling left and right. And if I resize the window, it automatically resizes as well. Okay. Now let me go into, another benefit that we have with this layout is it's not a formatting of a view, rather it is multiple different layouts. So as a user, I can quickly switch between either the tiles view or the list view seamlessly without having to do a page load, which means I can see my data in different formats as and when I require. Now let me go ahead and walk you through how you can configure tiles view for your modern list. Right, so for those of you who've played around with view formatting in the past, these properties should be pretty familiar to you. You've got your basic schema definition, you choose additional row class if you want to, or you go ahead with row formatter and you specify your JSON inside the row formatter, which is used to format the view. In the earlier example that I showed you, each row is a card, I had formatted it using row formatter. Now, the change that we've made is we've added a new property called tile props, within which you can define the width and the height of the card, and you can define your own custom formatter within the formatter property of tile props. The key thing to keep in mind here is that anything you do within tile props only affects your tile layout. It does not, excuse me, it does not affect your list layout, and vice versa. Anything you define on your list layout will not affect your tile props either. For instance, you can see I have height selection defined both at a parent level as well as within the tile props. So height selection will be false for your list layout, but it will be true for your tile layout. Now switching back, let me just quickly copy this snippet of code. Now if I go back to my original list, let's say I go to my list as cards view. In this view, I have not enabled tiles layout, and you can only see you have the old list and the compact list layouts. Now if I go to format current view, as I mentioned earlier, I use row formatter to define the JSON to show each row as a card. All I have to do at the very end is add the tile properties that I just copied over. And now if I save the JSON, you will see that I have a new layout that comes up in the options. Now at this point, I really haven't defined anything within tile props formatter. So if I click on tiles, I'm not going to get anything. To show you how this is useful, let me go ahead and copy over the JSON. So this is the JSON I used for the previous tile layout. It's a pretty big JSON, but let me just copy just the tile properties and put it back here. Now at this point, what I've done essentially is I've taken the JSON I created for my tile layout and added it to the existing row formatter. Under the row formatter, under tile properties. Oops. Forgot an extra bracket there, sorry about that. Now, the beauty is I can switch between a list format, a list layout, and a tiles layout seamlessly without any issues. And as I mentioned earlier, anything I define within tile properties will only affect the tiles layout. and anything I define under row formatter will only affect the list layout, which basically means you can format two different types of layouts within the same view without having to save it as a different view. You can have one custom formatted list layout and a custom formatted tile layout running in parallel. With this, I think that I come to the end of my demo. Any questions that you'd like to ask?
Excellent, thank you. Yes, excellent, thank you, RK. Let me ask the questions which I saw on the chat window. So first of all, awesome demo, thank you. Everybody is super excited. Slick is the latest comment from David on there as well. And good to see, by the way, Eric answering and collecting the data on the chat window as well. Now, there was a question related on supporting managed metadata. Is that supported with the tile views? Do you know?
One second, let me
metadata field.
Yeah, I have Shreyansh with me as well. He'll probably be better suited to answer that question.
Hey everyone, Shreyansh here. So managed metadata currently isn't supported in the custom formatters. The same restrictions apply as you guys already know about it. So we haven't really worked on that. If the community wants, we can probably see if we can add that support as well.
Cool. I'm just going to recap on that one. So the managed metadata columns or fields are not currently supported, but obviously if there's a demand, that's certainly something which we're looking into doing in the future. Now, there was a question from John Liu.
Just around... 1 second before we go to the next question. There's one more thing that I forgot to mention while I was talking. For the new JSON, anything you define inside the formatter part within tile props, it will follow all the rules as the formatters for custom formatting on views and columns follow. It follows the same set of rules, which means you could effectively pick up your formatter from your row formatter, plug it into your formatter under tile props, and voila, it works straight out of the box. All right, let's go on to the next question.
Excellent. The next question was around the group by. Does the tile layout support also group by option? That was from John Liu.
So in the tiles layout, we don't have a UI entry point which allows user to set a group by. But if you have it set in your view schema, the tiles layout is going to respect that. This is in sync with how document library behave with group by.
Yeah.
This one
makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Awesome. Then there was this really good question actually from Custer at Hilti. Can we link directly to the specific view? Not precisely on the tile view discussion, but I say in the modern list, if we want to link people and make sure that they are arriving on the right experience, that's a good question. Do we actually support that nowadays?
At the moment, we can define only a default view for a list. We haven't really come up with defining a default layout for a list yet, but that's something definitely that we are working on. At the moment, it is you can't set it. No.
Yes, excellent, awesome feedback as well. It's good to get all of this collected. Stacy was also asking, do we have a code sample available on this one already? I think this capability, is this available already in public tenants, or how are we? What's the status from a rolling perspective?
I'm happy to say that this feature is 100% in production at the moment, and we've actually updated the developer documentation with information on how you can use tile props. In fact, right now you can go and add this little blurb of text here, JSON, in any modern list, your custom list, and the tile layout will show up in your dropdown.
Cool, awesome, and like RK said, and the docs are up to date, so you can actually have a look on that. That blob is included in the docs as well. And I'm pretty sure that community can then contribute samples and more samples on our column formatting sample gallery, and then other ones can benefit out of it as well. I'm pretty sure that Chris will get a sample there within a matter of minutes. Is it already out there? Is it already out there, Chris? No, just kidding. Good. And there's David is pasting in the link of the docs as well. That's pretty much the main questions. Oh, there was a question. Is there a way to actually hide the title of the title of the list? And I know for a fact that that's not right now possible, but that's an interesting question related on if we are in a list experience, person would like to get rid of the list title on the view as well. maybe we'll get that one in the backlog and think about how to make that happen as a switch in some of the settings. One more final question, and does it work with within the list web part already?
Yeah, it works in the list web part as well.
Cool. That's a great confirmation as well. Excellent. I think that's it for now. Yes, everybody seems to be happy, at least in that set of questions. Thank you, everybody, for a great set of questions. Thank you, RK, for a great demo and a great feature. This is really good. Although it's not just RK who implemented the feature, but it's a really great feature to get available. And with, in quotes, no code, you can actually modify the experience, because some people consider the JSON as a code as well. But hey, it's all debatable. So thank you, RK, for that one. Let's actually move directly then to the next demo, which is John Liu's screen. So John, can you take it over?
Hello. Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
What's the time, by the way, John, on your location?
It's only 12:30. So just
okay,
over
12:30. Okay, yeah.
Time zone slightly in my favor. And I'm looking at the view and I'm thinking, oh, that's it. Everyone will leave my demo now because they all run off to play. It's deploying production. Even I want to go.
Yeah. Well, you heard about this one before, but I've tried to push this one time zone model across the world, but nobody seems to be catching on that one. So it would be so awesome if we would have only one time zone, right? So it would be the same time for everybody. It wouldn't be confusing at all. Anyway, so thank you, John. Take it away.
Okay, so I wanted to do a quick demo of using Batch. Batch is available on the SharePoint REST endpoint for a long time. And before I really go in, and I don't know whether Andrew is still here, but anyway, to read about Batch, it's documented here a long time ago, but the documentation is never as clear as the official documentation, which is Andrew Connor's blog, which is here. Read Andrew Connor's blog post. That's where you should go. And then read these two. And Andrew goes quite a lot deeper into how to do batch. But basically, instead of just sending a simple, we're probably familiar with this kind of HTTP requests. Instead of doing just that, you could put multiple of them together, put some text in the middle. It just had to be like this, and then create a GUID to kind of mark the boundaries of the batch, and then send this whole thing as one go. So that's how batch works. Now, I went back and checked Andrew's blog post. This is timeless. He did it in 2015. That's how nice. Anyway, and I'm digging it out and doing, guys, let's do batch again. That's what I'm up to. So, and if you're using PnP.js, which I've been using for a long time, PnP.js does wrap it all inside the Fluent Fluent syntax. So you could just say, do lots of stuff, do it in this batch, and then execute the whole batch. So that's how I've been doing it. But that's the raw HTML that we need to do. And then if you're using PnP.js, that's the wrapper that already does it, so you don't have to worry about it. And so you might be saying, John, why are you doing in Flow then? Well, that's really where my demo is. So let's quickly show you what this flow looks crazy. Actually, let me start here. So I have two lists. This is the source list. It's got about 11 items. Okay. When I'm presenting to like a blank room, just kind of quickly check. Okay, people are still there. Good. My biggest fear is, if I suddenly disconnect and I just keep talking and nobody knows. Anyway, so here's my destination list. Let me just double check. Oh, there's stuff in there. Let me just kill them all. Delete all this. Yeah, while it's doing that, okay. So the whole idea is that I have a source list of, a number of items, and I might have a destination, and I just want to copy all the lists across. Okay, and I want to do it in Flow. Now, traditionally in Flow, what we would do then is we will fetch all the items, then we'll put it into some sort of for each loop, and then for each one, we'll determine, oh, does this item exist in the source, right? So let me pop up. So we'll basically say get items, then we'll do for each, then we'll say get item, does it exist? And then either insert or update, right? So that's the traditional, if you're building a flow from scratch, we do it like this. Now, this works okay if you only have a few items. As soon as you have many items, this becomes very slow because you might pay, one cost for this, then you pay n cost for this, the number of rows, and then does it exist? Then you pay another n cost for this. So very quickly, you run into maybe SharePoint throttling. Also in Flow, each connection, you're basically like fetching the connection or doing the authentication, make your call, and then when it returns, it throws it all away. So the next action it does it again. So over time, if you're say looping through a large list, this gets quite slow, right? So basically that was the problem I was facing. I'm updating more and more list items and they're getting really slow, and I just wanted them to run quicker. So I started looking into batch. That was something I knew that existed, and I thought, I wonder if I can make it work. And so to make batch work, so this is the flow. I have two that I want to show. This one we'll come back to later, but I'll just explain what the boxes do. This one gets the source item. So this is this list, and that gets the destination. And then I'm basically juggling between them using either filter or select to basically work out what's new. So filter or select. Since this is a developer code, filter is array.filter, and select is array.map. Okay, so if you're thinking, oh, what are these fancy data operations in Flow? That's what they map to. So in general, in Flow, you're trying to use the data operations to shrink down your array as quickly as you can. And then within these two, I do a bit of union. I figure out what's new and what needs to be updated. And then basically the trick to both the insert and the update is here. Where is it? So insert chunk basically is this, right? It's very similar to this, where is this thing that we were doing. So basically that is one insert. We're doing that. And then we're gonna actually replace this line with the actual JSON of the SharePoint item that we're sending to this. And then same here with the update. Update has an if match. I just do an override. I don't actually check E tag, I just override. And then merge everything at the end and send it to SharePoint in one hit. So this joins all the inserts and updates together. I've got another one in production that also does deletes. So it actually works out between two source lists and destination, what's new, what needs to be updated, and what needs to be deleted. And then it just does the merge in one hit. So that's how this kind of, what you call it, fast sync works. I have another quick one here. This one, I've actually replaced this. So I get the item, but I actually throw it away. I'm just gonna create a random 1 to 50. And the title, I do a bit of random text. It could be John 1 or it could be 1 John. It's just kind of random. Let me start running with this. I'll show you what that looks like. Thanks. So you'll see getting items are fairly quick. All the data compose are almost 0 seconds. Converting or combining arrays. So filters and select are really quick. Compose is really quick. Apply to each can be slow, and ultimately sending 50 updates to SharePoint took 13 seconds. And if I come here, let me see. So there, all the items. So this is the random I was talking about, 1 John or John 2. So there was a bit of random in how I name things, but they're all written basically in one batch, up to 50. Okay, so that's the random. That one's to set it up. So that one did, what did it do? It did 15 seconds. Let's come over here and show you this one. So this one, I have this list. So this list only has 11 items, and they are all in this order. So I want to use it to update here. And let me show you when I run this. So this one's getting a source list and a destination list. It's comparing between them, and it only sends updates through. So basically, if the source and destination are the same, I don't need to send anything. And that one should, I don't know whether they, but you'll see like a few of these are updated because we fixed them. Like this one did not get changed, but this one did. That one, that one, that one, that one, right? So that's basically the whole the whole idea. And let me show you what this end looked like. So let me just copy that out and pop that over here. So basically, it just created this. Not too many, just created this. Now there's a few more things in Flow that makes it really easy. Flow has a GUID method expression, so it could create these GUIDs quite easily. The other thing that Flow has is a JSON method, which is basically JSON, what is it? JSON stringify. So that's very useful for turning a row into this type of JSON that we need for the for each row. Okay, so that's those two. And there's a few more thinking. I haven't really gone. Like in batch, you could do additional things like when I create an item, also changes permission and maybe you know do additional code. So it doesn't have to be just item updates. You can batch a bunch of things together in one code. So do test those ideas. But ultimately, this flow is quick because we talked to SharePoint only 3 times. This one, and this one. Okay, so a code that would have otherwise taken maybe 50 connections to SharePoint, we shrink it down to 3. When we are writing Flow as developers, we should think of Flow as the orchestration engine. Don't think so much of it as a workflow engine. You want to run things in parallel when they're not related. You want to filter your array quickly. You want to map your JSON, and then very quickly get into your write. So think in parallel, and generally your flow will be a lot quicker. So so yeah, those are 6 seconds. One more trick. I don't really have it in a demo, but I might just quickly build a blank one. I use a button trigger to start this flow. But you can actually use an automated trigger if I use SharePoint when item is created or modified. And I'll show you this setting here. In the SharePoint trigger, which should appear anytime soon, there is a setting in the back. So setting, generally the trigger is running with a split on, and this is something that's in Logic Apps as well. But basically, SharePoint trigger is a webhook plus a polling trigger. When it gets kind of notified that things have changed, it gets a small array of multiple items. Now, because of the synchronizing of two lists run so fast, you actually don't need it to run on each item. You can actually say, you know what, don't worry about this. Just give it to me as either one item or array. I don't really care. And then I'm going to run the sync just on the whole list anyway. So that will save you a whole bunch of flow. So if I'm saying creating a flow to automatically sync every change here into this list, then I will run this trigger in batch mode. So that means I only get one trigger. If the user is quite quick at typing, or if they're using the multi-edit, if you're using the quick edit to edit a lot of rows, then when the trigger fires, it may fire for 3 or 4 items at once. But I just sync the whole thing anyway, so I don't really care which item is the one that's running. So yeah, now I wanted to kind of end with the thought that I was really enjoying the list view, the tile things, where we could do the tile view of these lists. I wonder if I see it here. No, not here yet. But in the view, you can also create flow buttons, so you can actually have your end users trigger flow on these items. And I was really thinking how, like, you know, JSON, we do have to know a bit of JSON, so I consider a low code, not no code. But in the low code world, we can now customize SharePoint lists to be quite pretty, very functional, and you have the list view JSON in the front, so almost like a UI, right? It's running in the browser, but you have Flow able to run in the backend, almost like a local server that's doing all these, you know, cross-list copying. Maybe you need to copy to another list that the end user don't have permission, so your connection actually runs as another account. So all these really fancy stuff that we can now build. It's just come quite a long way. So quite enjoy how these pieces come together. I want to probably end with one more. So I recorded a session on the Flow conference on how to make the flow really quick. I'm right at the end, and I go into how these filter and flow are. Oh, where is it? I'm right at the end. Bunch of the flow MVPs are here. Where I mentioned, you know, how do we bring these flow runs down, and you know, diving deeper into the filter and the select and how those work. So I just want to end with that. Go and sign up. This conference picked up a lot of people in the last 2 weeks, so I hope to see you. And that's all. I'll hand my mic.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. And it's good to see and a great demo on the integration of Flow and SharePoint. And SharePoint is one of the most used, let's say, friends of Flow in the Flow world, because a lot of people are using SharePoint and lists and all of that, and then that starts the Flow operations and all of that. But from a timing perspective, it is time to move into Paolo. Paolo, do you want to have slides first, or do you want to have demo first?
No, let me switch to my screen first, and then I will show a couple of slides from there. Thank you.
Sounds good.
So welcome everybody from myself as well, and let's talk a little bit about how we can synchronize page templates across multiple site collections. First of all, let's start talking about page template very briefly, just to be sure that we are all on the same page. So you know that in a modern site, especially if you are in a communication site, you can create a new page and you can use a page template if you like, so that these page templates can behave almost like the page layout we were used to have in the past publishing features of SharePoint. And if I select this custom page template, for example, I have a custom header with a custom image, and I can define my custom layout for the page, and can build multiple pages based on this page template. It is really useful and powerful, and when you want to create your own custom page templates, you simply need to create a new page in a modern site, and when you will publish your page, of course, I have to provide name, which of course will be name, and when you publish a page, you can select to make that page available also as a page template. Under the cover, what will happen will be that, and let me leave this page because I don't really need it, that in the site pages library of your modern site, there will be a folder called templates in which you will have all of your page templates stored. Now, let's switch very briefly to the slide deck, see what is the need we want to talk about, and then come back to the demo. So what if we want to share the same set of page templates across multiple modern site collections? So for example, whenever we create a new modern communication site or modern team site, we want to have an out-of-the-box set of page templates available, and eventually we also want to keep all of the site collections in sync so that we have exactly the same set of page templates across all of these site collections. Well, one option is to use the PnP provisioning engine and to create a PnP provisioning template which will do the actual provisioning of the page templates across all of your site collections. And what is the suggested architecture for achieving this goal? I said so far on this slide, because right now, this is a technique that you can use, the one that I'm talking about. Maybe, and that's my hope at least, in the future there will be something out of the box. But right now, so far, what you can do is to create a custom site design which can be used whenever you provision a new site, a new modern site, so that with that site design, you can also use the PnP provisioning engine in the backend, and you can provision the page templates during the application of your site design, as well as you can eventually create a job which will sync, let's say once a day or whenever you want, will synchronize the page templates across all of the existing site collections. To give you an idea of the overall architecture of a proposed solution for this need, you can have a custom site design, which will be available in the list of designs that you can select when you create a modern site. And once you create the site design, inside of the site design, you can use the trigger flow action, which will be useful to invoke an external Microsoft flow. So we are back again on flow. And using flow, you can put a message in a queue. The flow can be an HTTP triggered flow, so that you will wake up the flow instance with an HTTP request coming from the site design. You will put a message in a storage queue. And thanks to the message in the storage queue, you will activate an Azure function, which will be used to do the actual provisioning of the PnP provisioning template, which will include the page template. So how can we do that in practice? First of all, from a PnP point of view, we can connect to a site which can be the repository, the source repository of our page templates, and we can get the provisioning template out of that site. We have to declare that we want to include all the client-side pages. We target the page contents handler only, so that we will get a very clean and simple provisioning template. And I already did it targeting this site we were having a look right now. And by doing the get PnP provisioning template, I saved a .xml file just for the sake of showing you the content. And as you can see in this file, I have the definition of all of my client-side pages, which will include also the client-side pages stored in the templates folder. So basically the page templates. And if, let me say, we are smart enough to keep a site collection dedicated to be the model or the repository for page templates that we want to share across all of the site collection, we will simply need to use the command line that I showed you, the get PnP provisioning template. We will include the client-side pages, and we will get back all the page templates defined as client-side page elements in the provisioning template, together with any additional file, like, for example, the background image that I selected for my custom page template. And by applying this template onto a target site, which we need to create right now, let me do that. Let me go to the root of SharePoint, and let me create a target site, which I will call page templates target. And as soon as the page will be ready, I will be able to create a new communication site, for example. I will call it like we just saw, so page template target. Let me create it. And in a matter of few seconds, as soon as the target will be created, I will be able to connect and to apply my target provisioning template onto this site. So let's do that. Let's connect with Connect PnP Online. And let's apply the PnP provisioning template. And by doing that, you will see I will have my page template available in the list of templates whenever I will create a new page in this target site. You can fully automate the process using the Microsoft Flow and the site design, as I told you, and you can create a really interesting and powerful solutions for your end users, because every new site will be out of the box or almost out of the box ready with the set of page templates that you want to have. It's a matter of a few seconds to see the template applied. And if I come back and refresh the home page of this site, which is the one we just created, I can simply create a new page. And as you will see, I will have my page template available on this new site as well. So as I said, pretty useful and interesting, really powerful scenario, just with few PowerShell lines of code and a very, very simple and lightweight flow and site design in place. And that's it for this short demo. It was a 10-minute demo, so I tried to do my best to save some time so that we can eventually have some room for any question in the Q&A area.
Thank you, Paolo. Thank you for a great demo. A quick one, but it's super useful demo because it really shows the simplicity on extracting and applying those templates and lists, page templates from existing sites. So just one clarification on page template and page layout usage. These are page templates, which means that they're basically starting points. There are no locked sections because that's not supported in the modern SharePoint pages, at least for now. We'll never know what will be available in the future. So the classic kind of a page layout in the publishing side of the house, they supported kind of a lockdown sections and controls, and that's not supported with the modern side of the house. But super simple demo, but super powerful demo on using the templating mechanism for doing that. Now, there was a few questions related on the licensing and all of that stuff. Right now, at least personally, I don't want to comment anything or even speculate anything related on licensing things. I think John responded on some of those yet already. So clarifying at least the integration between the list and the flow. Now, what does this scenario would mean from a licensing perspective? What Paolo showed, I don't want to speculate on that. And there are licensing changes in progress in the flow side of the house. Well, I think they have been announced, but it's still under clarification on what does it mean in practice. But good, we are 2 minutes from closing, which is good because I have a hard stop. I have another community call actually starting in 2 minutes as well. So next SharePoint Dev special interest group call around these areas and these topics is on September 19th. The next SharePoint Framework special interest group call is on 12th of September. So again, a week from now, at the same time. And then we did have that monthly community call on next Tuesday, where we have John Sanders, a principal program manager from Redmond, joining us and really doing live demos on the latest capabilities of the modern out-of-the-box web part, so modern experiences. So which is super important for any developer as well, because then you know, should you be implementing a custom solution or can you take advantage of out-of-the-box capabilities? But that's it for this week. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for super active discussion again on the chat window. That's super helpful for everybody who's joining this. Thank you RK, John and Paolo for the great demos as well. And definitely hopefully we'll see all of the attendees in the next community call. Thank you. Bye-bye.